All right, we have some changes in this patch that will change TFT forever, but we'll get there when we get there. Let's start off with the patch highlights. So Deadeye, Demacia, Juggernaut, Rogue, Shadow Owls, 14 Augments, Cassio, Cho'Gath, Malzahar, Samira, Ashe, Galio, Jinx, Soraka, Swain, Teemo, Warwick, Karma, Taric, and Aphelios all being buffed. Nerfs to Piltover, Slayer, Strategist, 11 Augments, Jhin, Zed, Katarina, and Yasuo. So I'm very happy that they're buffing some of these one-cost units because Cassiopeia, you pretty much never play her. Cho'Gath, Malzahar. How is there not a Void reroll one-cost comp yet? There's got to be something like that in the near future, right? Samira, again, like the low-cost Noxians. Like, how's there not a reroll Noxus or reroll Challenger with, like, Samira 3, Cassio 3, carrying that? It boggles my mind. But I'm glad that they're buffing them. Most of these buffs, well-deserved. For the nerfs, like, yeah, Jhin, very powerful. He's, like, the best one-cost unit in the game, I feel like, at least for damage dealers. Zed, yeah, Zed reroll pretty garbage. Katarina, same thing. Yasuo, did Yasuo need a nerf? I feel like Yasuo is really strong in the mid to late game, but a little bit weaker in like the super late game. But we'll see what they actually did. For the adjusted, Void, Akshan, Garen, and Bel'Veth all being changed, and then reworking Know Your Enemy and Orianna. So let's get right into the changes. So I will be going over like what I think about all the changes and how I think it will affect the meta at the end of the review. But they are also releasing like a new game mode called Soul Brawl. This will only be available for 1 month. So Soul Brawl has 2 phases, the training phase and a best of 3 phase. And there are a bunch of different special effects that you kind of get. You get some certain loot, you get stuff like the Imperfect Soul Crown, and then during the tournament, it turns perfect, and then you get like a bunch of additional stats. And then if you lose twice, you get eliminated from the match because it's a best of 3. Pretty much, it's just kind of TFT, but a little bit different. And if you lose, you get eliminated from like the bracket thing. But let's move on into the event pass, Choncc Dome. This will be our first event that will have an extra pass. And it's similar to like the standard set passes, and you can buy it for 575 RP. And it's got a bunch of loot to kind of go along with it. There's also Chibi Gwen and Soul Fighter Gwen. That could be interesting too. And also the new map called the Choncc Dome. All right, let's get into the Augment data policy. And this is what's going to change TFT forever, unless they bring it back, but we'll see. So they're going to be removing all Augment API data, and pretty much like you're going to not be able to data check augments anymore. And like, yeah, like I didn't think it was cool that all you do is like type in augments and pick your augment that way. But because there are some augments that are so bad or some augments that are so good, it's a big debate. I kind of don't want to get into it right now, but this change is huge because a lot of players who don't know how to pick augments, they're screwed now. So as long as you're like actively thinking about your game, you should definitely check out the fundamentals of TFT video that I did a while back to kind of help you know which augments to pick to kind of help your team grow and like become more powerful. But yeah, pretty much websites can't use Augment API data anymore. But let's go on into the system changes. So Elder Dragon. Elder Dragon's now more healthy, so this will just make the game last a little longer during that like late stage because I guess it was getting killed too quickly and it kind of stressed people out, I guess. I think this is actually like a crime to humanity because now everyone's TFT games will take like a couple seconds longer, but since there's so many TFT games being played, I wonder what the loss to humanity is. PvE loot orbs, Krugs, Wolves, and Raptors will now always drop at least 2 orbs, very nice. It was always kind of unfair when some people got more stuff than you. So now you won't be that far behind. You'll still be behind or ahead in some cases, but maybe it won't be as drastic anymore. Training Dummy getting 50 attack damage, so that's kind of cool. It could do some of the like cool trait stuff from before, so Wandering Trainer definitely going to have a huge effect from this, but I doubt it's going to do that much. Training Dummy will now also appear in the combat tracker. Oh man, that's too funny. Region portals are reworking a bunch. Yuumi Zoom Zone is now when you buy XP, gain an additional 2. That's actually very interesting. I like this change a lot. That's very nice. Petrosite Forest, start the game with 3 component anvils. Okay, that could be interesting too. You can pretty much just force whatever comp you want. What the Forge augment can no longer be taken in Nox Crya, and because it granted items on arena hexes. And then Warlord's Palace Treasure Dragon reroll cost being changed from 2 to 1. That's good. Good change. Good change overall. Especially since this is not like the main sets mechanic. This used to be a set mechanic, but now it's just like one of the portals that we have. And yeah, like having people use the reroll more probably going to be a little more interesting. Strongest unit criteria. Criteria for deeming the strongest unit. The unit with the most items is the strongest, with ties broken by which unit was fielded most recently. So this is good, useful for stuff like Shurima buff, Yordle 4-starring, things like that, Demacia items, and yeah, pretty good change overall. It's good to make it more consistent. Mana Reave has been reduced to 30% from 35% for all sources. This affects Ahri, Freljord, and Shroud of Stillness, so that's a direct nerf to those units and items and traits. And then now we're on to the large changes. Large, like the chance a famous streamer loses to a newly buffed Elder Dragon. Alright, so going into the traits, Darken respawn timer is being changed from 5 to 4 seconds. That's Aatrox. He's the only Darken, and it's going to be a little bit better. Deadeye bonus damage is being buffed as well at 2, 4, and 6 Deadeye. Yeah, the Deadeye trait has been lacking a little bit. The units are really good independently, but the trait I did feel was a little lacking. Demacia, Armor, and MR is being buffed up a little bit at later Demacia. Yeah, no one's ever played like a 7 Demacia comp in High Challenger. Like, okay, maybe it's happened like a couple times, but it's not anyone's main comp ever. So I do want to see that moving forward. Multicaster bug fix. Multicaster 4's bonus cast now have the intended 60% reduced effectiveness instead of 50. Piltover T-Hex. Breath damage is being reduced a little bit, and it can no longer be sold at the start of shopping phase before gaining its power. Piltover T-Hex no longer has floating text when gaining power and charge. And then Rogue 4 bleed damage being buffed from 30% to 40%. I don't know how many rogues you need to actually make 4 rogue worth it. Even if it is like viable, I don't think the 4 rogue buff is that cool. It really doesn't do that much. I wish it kind of did something else. I wish they just reworked it. I don't know into what, but I feel like all the assassin traits in the past have been a lot more interesting. Rogue units are now temporarily CC immune while dashing. That's nice. They'll no longer cancel their dash if triggered during a cast animation that disallows movement. Shadow Owl shield duration increased a little bit. Bug fix now counts all instances of damage towards triggering spectral form, instead of only counting damage from attacks. So I guess if you have a damage over time on you, or like something from an item or something like that, it wasn't being counted before, but it should be counted now, so that's a nice change. Shadow Owl damage instances to trigger spectral form is being increased from 8 to 10. Slayer Omnivamp 15% to 12%. Slayer damage increase health threshold is being changed from 75% to 60%. I wish they made going into like late Slayer a little bit better, because the units are so bad. I know people have been doing it, but that's just because the Slayer units themselves were OP. So if they lower the strength of the Slayer units, but then maybe buff up the trait, I feel like that would be something interesting to do. But yeah, for sure, reduce the Omnivamp a little bit. And I'm only talking about the later trait. Having 2 Slayer gives you the Omnivamp and like a little bonus damage, but each additional Slayer that you add, you just get like a tiny bump in damage. It's really not that much, so I wish like it was a little different like that. Strategist AP being reduced at all levels pretty much. And then Techno Genius bug fix. The Mechanoswarm upgrade now burns for the correct amount when upgraded. The Mechanoswarm rocket damage is being nerfed as well. So Heimerdinger nerfs. He was a very good legendary, probably one of the best ones. And yeah, just because super late game, he's always going to be good, because you get to like buy all his upgrades and stuff. It's like a turbo late game unit. Techno Genius shrink module, Shred and Sunder is being nerfed a little bit at 2 and 3 shrink. And then Void Remora base AD being nerfed, Void Rift Herald base HP being buffed, and then Rift Herald Void charge damage being buffed as well, and then Baron base HP being buffed. So overall, like 3 Void, obviously not as good, but 6 and 8 Void going to be a little bit better. I think overall this is good for the trait. Void is really good if you're in like lower rankings, because a lot of people can't build teams that beat the Void units, and because of that, it's just much better. And as you get better and better, like you'll be able to make better teams, so you could just make a better team to kind of respond to the Void nonsense. But a lot of the power from the Void trait comes from just the trait. So if you ever get like a +1 Void, the trait becomes instantly better without any skill expression. So I think like if you're in like lower levels, Void trait is really, really good. You should go for it like as many games as you are allowed to. But as you get higher and higher, Void becomes like gradually a little bit worse. Units tier 1. So Cassiopeia mana 40 to 30. Wow, blue buff is going to be insane on Cassiopeia. Twin Fang damage is going to be nerfed, I guess, to compensate for it. So it's kind of like a rework, I guess. Do they talk about this? They don't really talk about Cassiopeia here, but that's fine. Cho'Gath HP on Feast Kill is going to be scaling now instead of just a flat 30. Feast damage HP ratio is going to be 10% to 12%, so Cho'Gath buffs all around. I'm really excited to see some Cho'Gath rebuilds. I've gotten it in the past, wasn't that impressed with it, but it was overall pretty solid. Jhin Ionia bonus, 30 AD to 20%. Malzahar Call of the Void damage is going to be Buffed up a tiny bit. More than a tiny bit, actually. That's actually a decent amount of buffs. Call of the Void, shield destruction 35% to 50%, and then reworking Oriana's command protect. So Oriana now shields her lowest health ally and empowers her next attack to deal bonus magic damage. So now you no longer have to put Oriana in like the second row or even the front line. Now she could stay in the back, which is good. Oriana command protect damage is going to be buffed up a bit to kind of compensate because it used to be AoE, now it's just single target. Poppy Steadfast Hammer 4-star upgrade AoE stun is going to be changed from 1 second to 0.25. This Poppy 4-star hammer thing was so annoying. It just like knocks... I have PTSD from some of the Kale comps I've been facing that use Poppy 4-star. Samira mana buff is going to be reduced by 10. Samira Flare AD ratio going to be reduced to kind of compensate. So they're just going to be like Cassiopeia and Samira are just going to be perma-casting, but maybe the effect not going to be as great. Viego Blade of the Ruined King stab damage is going to be nerfed at 1-star, nerfed at 2-star, and 3-star. Whoa, that's interesting. I thought they'd maybe like buff it at 3-star. Do they talk about it? They do not. I've been dreaming of doing like a triple RFC Viego build. It just looks so fun to do. Is it good? According to the data on the last patch, not so great. But maybe on a different patch, it could be really good, you know? But they did nerf it, so maybe they buff it in some other ways. Or like, they did buff Shadow Owls, right? So maybe that has some effect to it. Units tier 2. Alright, so Ashe's volley AD ratio is being buffed again. They already buffed it in the previous patch, so they really want us to itemize Ashe. But again, Ashe is like a support champion. She slows enemy AD, so having her just like get infinite attack damage is the only way to make her an attack damage carry. But once she is the best item holder for Deadeyes, then maybe she's just going to be way too good if you just keep buffing her AD. But maybe as like a temporary unit in the middle, she should be a little stronger. I don't know. Like, I never regret playing Ashe. She always does something for my team. So I don't know if you need to buff it. But they buffed her twice in the same stat. So I wonder when enough is enough. Galio Shield of Duran damage reduction is going to be buffed up at 3-star. Galio Shield of Duran healing going to be buffed all around. Galio's hero augment has not been good so far. I wonder with these buffs if it's actually going to be viable. But max mana buff as well. And then Jinx Fishbone's AD ratio is going to be buffed all around. And now only every other attack from her spell counts as an attack for items like Gwynsu's Rageblade, Runon's Hurricane, and all that other stuff. So those items are going to be a little bit worse on her, which is fine. Yeah, she was very good with Runon's Hurricane. It was probably her best item. But I'm glad that they're giving her compensation buff. So this is kind of like a net no change. You can build other items on her and she'll be better, but you can't abuse like the Runon's Hurricane interaction. Soraka Astral Infusion damage is going to be buffed up a tiny bit. Swain mana buff. Well, did he need a mana buff? Okay, I guess the buff duration lasts a little less. And then bonus HP is going to be buffed as well. Ooh. I already thought Swain was fantastic. Demon Flare, I haven't felt the power from it yet, but whenever I run Swain as a tank, for a 2-cost unit, you can't really ask for much more than Swain. Very tanky unit. Teemo Noxious Trap damage is going to be buffed up at 4-star. Interesting. That could be cool. I've not seen too many 4-star Teemos really pop off yet. Warwick Primal Howl passive heal on attacks is going to be buffed up at all levels. And then Zed AD nerf from 60 to 55. I bet they're nerfing Ravenous Hunter, which is Warwick's hero augment, but we'll see later. Zed Living Shadow base damage is going to be nerfed a little bit at 3-star as well. So yeah, Zed nerfs, well deserved. It'll probably still be okay. I don't know. 1080 is kind of a lot. Still probably might be fine. There was a Slayer nerf as well. Maybe it won't be that. Yeah, maybe I'm looking back. Probably not going to be that great. Units tier 3. Akshan Comeuppance. Now only every other bullet from his ability counts as an attack for items like Rageblade, Hurricane, etc. Akshan Comeuppance bullet AD ratio being buffed to compensate. And then it's no longer interrupted by crowd control. Yeah, that could be annoying. Garen's Judgment AD ratio per spin is going to be buffed up at all levels. Garen Judgment base spin is going to be buffed up by 0.2, and then AS per bonus spin is going to be nerfed a little bit. We haven't seen Garen in a while, maybe for like 2 patches, or like, I don't know how you count the B and C patches, but we haven't seen Garen in a while. It's probably good enough to make him like maybe low A tier, high B tier. Now onto Karma, probably one of my favorite units this set. Wait, they're buffing her? Oh, but then they're nerfing this thing. Okay. So overall, we're adjusting Karma to make her slightly less reliant on her Ionia bonus in hopes that she can find success in Invoker verticals. All right, so yeah, so it's like net no change in terms of the Ionia build, approximately, I'm guessing. And then she should be stronger in her Invoker build. So that should be pretty cool. Katarina Veracity damage being nerfed a bit across the board. Rek'Sai Furious Bite true damage bonus threshold being bumped up, and then the Execute Bite heal is being changed from 15% to 10% of max health. Taric mana buff 40 out of 90 to 0 out of 55. Ooh, Taric should be really good. And they're buffing. Yo, mages are, or whatever the comp is, sorcerers are going to come back. Taric, huge buff, and Swain, huge buff. Those are the main tanks for the sorcerer builds. There's one more change. Taric no longer has floating blocked combat text while his shield is active. Man. This is a big buff. Like, his second cast is going to come so quickly. And he's got a bigger shield, too. I'm going to come so quickly whenever I play this. Jesus Christ. All right, so units tier 4. Aphelios AD being buffed up a little bit. Gwen Snip Snip. Third cast armor and MR buff duration 2, 2.5, 4 to 3, 3, 6. Yeah, Snip Snip. Gwen does deserve some love, right? I think so. AI Dash is now slightly smarter. I don't know how you define that because they said Recon AI would get smarter, and then like my Kaisa is still an idiot. So everything's relative, right? This was the old Kaisa, not the current Kaisa. Gwen will now continue attacking her current target after casting if able. Lux's ability can no longer be interrupted by CC. The Torrent of Light damage is going to be buffed? Okay. She did get nerfed before, so I guess this is a compensation buff. Actually, it makes sense, yeah. I'm actually for this. Sejuani now gains the shield immediately on cast rather than after a delay. Urgot mana buff. Ooh, 30 out of 90. That's pretty cool. Yasuo Last Breath single target damage ratio. 500, 500, 1500 to force it. Okay, that doesn't really matter. Is Yasuo scaling with AD is actually insane. Like 500, 475. If you're not building Deathblade on Yasuo, you're doing something wrong because that scaling's absolutely bonkers. Zeri plus 5 AD, overcharge duration 6 seconds to 9915, and then now gets full value from Robotic Arm. Those are pretty big Zeri buffs. I thought Zeri obviously was a little bit weak, but these are pretty decent. This overcharge duration is up a lot. It's up a lot. I think Zeri, we're going to go back to a Zeri meta. Is it going to be a Zeri Aphelios meta again? Aphelios got buffed too, but Aphelios not as big of a buff. Could be, nah, it's sorcerers. The Taric and Swain changes. Let's go through all the changes first. Units tier 5. So we have Aatrox getting buffed up. Darkin was buffed too, but armor, MR, mana, and world ender damage all being buffed. The revive animation speed has been increased. Cast animation speed increased. So like all these things going to be really good for Aatrox. I think Aatrox is really good, but the difference between 2-star Aatrox and 1-star Aatrox, I think, is like astronomical. Ahri Essence Thief, overall cast time reduced. Ahri will now return to attacking more quickly after casting. Ahri Essence Thief, third cast wind up time significantly reduced. And then Bel'Veth no longer continues casting on nothing if her target dies with no other targets in range. She'll now find the next closest target. Okay, that's really nice, really nice. Probably don't need RFC on her anymore. It'll still be a good item probably, but not 100% necessary. Bel'Veth Royal Maelstrom, lash damage, AD ratio 75 to 60%. And then now moves faster while in Empress form. And then max mana nerf, 0 out of 55 to 20 out of 70. So yeah, I guess it's compensation for this change because that's a very, very big change. Now onto the legend augments. Spoils of War re-added a small chance to drop multiple gold on kill on stage 3 and beyond. Okay, so you can't snowball as big. Is Draven going to be good? I don't think so. Tiny Power, AD, AP, and AS going to be nerfed. Ooh, all of them being nerfed. Interesting. All right, don't play Veigar or Draven still, I think. I'm pretty sure it's just Poro. Augments, reworking Caretaker's Ally. When you reach level 6, gain a 2-star tier 3 unit. It's being changed to each time you level up, gain the same tier 3 champion. I like that. Okay, so this is where data checking solves so much and saves you like 40 minutes of your time and possibly 50 of your LP. Because this could either be the best augment ever or the worst augment ever. It's one of the two. If I had to put money on it, of course I could still lose money, but like if I had to put money on it, It's probably either the best or the worst augment. Let's read what they said about it. Caretaker's Ally often gave a 2-star 3-cost when you're already committed to a comp. By allowing you to know what unit you'll receive earlier, we expect the augment to be much easier to play and adjust your comp to. If you think about it, it's just getting like... it has... If you just get a crappy unit, that could be really bad. Really, really... This is just an RNG augment now that I think about it. You either get a unit that's good in reroll comps or a unit that's not good in reroll comps, and that's pretty much it. Because if you look at some of the 3 costs, a lot of them are like support units. So... let me go to the item guide I just made and go to the tier 3 units. So, Tarek, it could be useful because you could reroll Vel'Koz as well for the sort comp. Garen, good. Darius, good. Rek'Sai, good. Katarina, good. Echo, maybe it is good. You just don't want, like, maybe Lissandra, Sona. I'm not the biggest fan of Kalista and Karma because you kind of, like, want different tier units. When I look at a reroll comp, I like having to reroll for a bunch of units. So when you're doing Garen reroll, you could get Garen, Sona, and Darius, for example, because Juggernauts plus Demacia, lots of things to roll for. When you're doing Noxus reroll, Darius and Katarina, both really good units because you could also add an Echo, lots of 3-cost units to play. So when you do end up like trying to reroll for a comp, like you get a lot more value, right? But for Kalista, she doesn't really like any other 3-cost units. Karma, kind of the same thing. Akshan, kind of the same thing. Jace, kind of the same thing. So this either could be like really good or really bad is what I'm guessing. Probably depends on what unit you RNG into. But that's just like how TFT is intended to be played. Medium end shopping changed from gold to silver. Medium end shopping gold changed from 3 to 1. That's fair, I think. Yeah. No, is that... Again, this is where data checking really, really saves you 45 minutes of your life. It might only save you 20 LP for this one. This one saves you 50 LP for sure. This one might save you like 10 or 20. I think it's good. Yeah, I think it's good. You get a lot of good shops. Okay, Unified Resistance, Armor, and MR is being changed from 20 to 18. Yeah, that was always one of the best silver augments. This is just a slight nerf, so it'll probably be like average now. I don't think it'll be bad. It'll probably be average. Young, Wild, and Free now grants a random component. Ooh, that should be really good then. So the data on Young, Wild, and Free. So if you take it in stage 2, god awful. If you take it in stage 3, one of the best augments. So for all the people taking it in stage 3, really good. So if you're high health, always take this. If you're like 100% health win streaking, always take this on stage 3. They should only give the random component on stage 2 because stage 3 people already doing excellent in the data. I wonder what the decision was on that. Built different, HP being buffed, AS being buffed as well. Yeah, built different, especially the built different 2, very weak right now, so definitely needs to be buffed up. This is just a stat check, so data checking is the only reason why you would ever play this augment. So that's going to be a little bit different too. Dueling Gunners, initial attack speed 10% to 5%. By the way, I will be trying to do an augment guide anyways, and this one, I'll just try to identify which augments are like really good or really bad, but obviously no data behind that anymore. Jeweled Lotus crit chance being reduced by 10. Know your enemy being reworked. Your units deal 15% increased damage. If you and your opponent have any of the same traits activated, they deal 20% increased damage instead. Ooh, very interesting. That's cool. That's really cool. Trying to like make different things happen in the game. I like that a lot. Long distance PAL stats percent share being changed from 30% to 25%. By the way, the guide will probably come out on like Saturday or Sunday. I'm not really sure yet. Loving Invocation AP per cast 2.5 to 2. Mana burn, HP burn per second 3 to 2. Yeah, this one was always really good data-wise. Average 4.0. Very, very strong augment. Ravenous Hunter's stats per stack being changed from 6 to 5. It is a nerf, but it still probably should be pretty good. Probably middle of the pack now. Actually, still should be like maybe slightly above average. It was like really, really good before. Stable Evolution HP per star level being changed from 80 to 70. 80 and AP per cast being changed from 8 to 7. Yeah, this was one of the best augments as well. Stars Are Born gold 3 to 6. Suppressing Fire debuff duration 4 to 8. The boss set stats per sit-up being buffed up by 5. Is that enough? Probably. Three's a Crowd HP per 3 costs being changed from 100 to 111. That's kind of cool. Built Different 3 being buffed. I didn't even need to read the changes. I just know it's being buffed because I know the data on Built Different 3. So I guess like that kind of changes the stuff too. It's like we just won't know. Only they will know. Caretaker's chosen level at which Radiant Armory opens is now being changed from 8 to 7. Endless Horde health reduction 40% to 20%. Yeah, I did the math on this before. I didn't even need to data check because it seemed pretty bad. But yeah, they needed to buff this, so that's a pretty good buff. Endless Horde gold being changed from 2 to 8. Ooh, this might be actually a good augment. Level up initial XP being changed from 4 to 2. And then starter kit champs gain being buffed from 1 to 2. Wellness trust gold required to heal 50 to 40. Okay, so that's pretty good. I've never taken this, but is it worth it now? I probably still wouldn't take it. You have to have very specific situations to take that. Now onto items. So Dragon Claw buffed for magic resist and HP regen. Yep. Very underbuilt item. Even in AP metas, it wasn't being like insta-slammed, which is a problem, right? It should be insta-slammed in AP metas, but yeah, it should be good now. Locket of the Iron Solari value is being buffed up, and the duration is also being changed from 4 to 8 seconds. And then Locket of the Iron Solari... They really don't like this item. Maybe they should just remake this item for one set and then bring it back the next set, because Bastions cause Locket to have like huge issues. And because of that, you just like killed the item. I don't know. Like, so if we compare it to the old nerf that it had, 300, 350, 400, 800, it used to be 15 seconds as well. Like the original shield value is nerfed. The shield duration is also nerfed. And like, just why even buff this? Just like say we're gonna take care of it next patch and don't even change anything, because no one's building this. Orange for like, if they do, like quote me in this video and prove me wrong. Like, wow. Even in its old state, apart from the Bastion build, it just was horrible. So, okay, yeah, not gonna talk about that. Orange Forge and Radiant items, Dragon. I'm only that mad about it, or like passionate about it, because Locket was my favorite item. It was the item I used to like climb really hard in set 1, and it's just been like a long lost love ever since, you know. Dragon Claw Radiant, magic resist being buffed, same with the max HP regen. Locket of the Iron Solar. Okay, I'm not even gonna read that. Sniper's Focus grants +1 range, and then the Sniper's Focus damage per hex is being reduced by 2%. I love this change personally. I feel like range is a really cool stat to kind of play around with. And especially on melee units, it could be cool, but you don't want Sniper's Focus on a melee unit. So unless there's someone that really, really, really benefits from this, it's not going to help them that much. But on range units, it's going to help them a ton. I can't wait to build this on Azir. I think he's one of the best users of this item, even after the attack speed nerfs that this item received. Small changes. So Bruiser, bonus health. They're going to be buffing 4 Bruiser a little bit. Yeah, very small change. Deadeye bonus damage. Didn't they already talk about this in large changes? Juggernaut max damage reduction is going to be buffed actually at 4 Juggernauts. Interesting. Okay. So it could be Nasus, Garen, Darius, and Set maybe. That could be a decent lineup. Zon robotic arm bonus attack chance being nerfed a little bit. I'm assuming that's because they fixed a bug with Zeri with robotic arm, so they're nerfing it to kind of compensate. Units, Renekton Call the Meek, wind-up time slightly reduced. I already thought Renekton was really good. He's just really good in the early game. He's like one of the best early game tanks, but then as soon as like late stage 3 hits, early stage 4, completely useless. But in stage 2 and early stage 3, I think Renekton's like probably one of the best tanks at 2-star, at least. But obviously, like, you don't get him all the time. Augment Salvage Bin now deconstructs craftable emblems. Gifts from above now correctly renamed to Spectral Supplies. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's a cooler name. Is it a cool? Okay, it doesn't matter. Double Trouble now grants 2-star units directly rather than giving them in an orb. Good change. Scrappy Inventions temporarily removed from Double Up. And then Burn tooltips from Morella Nomicon, Moral, whatever these things are called, have been updated to accurately reflect burn damage per second. Okay, that's good. Bug fixes. Rolling for days now correctly count towards frequent flyer and return on investment. That could be a pretty cool combo. Think slow. Rolling for days are no longer consumed by think fast. Good. I don't know how that situation would happen, but these are very rare situations. Summons and training dummies can no longer be selected as the strongest unit for Shurima, Demacia, and Lesser Jeweled Lotus. I didn't know that happened. Removed a small window where Darius could gain mana between casts after resetting. And then removed Cursed Crown and Golden Egg from double up game mode. Ancient Dragons and Ancient Tooltips. Golden Egg unit description no longer says it'll hatch into a Draconic champion. T-Hex can now gain mana on the first fight after cashing out if her ability is unlocked. Contagion Augment bonus damage now additively stacks with other sources of bonus damage rather than multiplicatively. Warlord's Palace and Targon Prime now works in Hyper Roll. Fix the bug where Vel'Koz could occasionally fail to multicast if his first cast killed his target. Yasuo can no longer use his ability on untargetable units. Lesser Jeweled Lotus and Jeweled Lotus now always grant the correct amount of crit chance. Bastion Combat Fixed VFX will now properly play on the center of champions rather than their feet. I always thought this looked a little funny. I wasn't sure exactly what it was, but I guess it's because someone had a foot fetish when putting this in. Dug Up Buried Treasures 1, 2, 3 will now stack properly instead of disabling the most recently selected one. Fix a bug where Demacia... There are a lot of bugs fixed. That's really good. Fix a bug where Demacia could give an additional rating item when a stronger unit autofilled an army from the bench. Fix a bug where Jeweled Lotus augments were not adding their critical strike chance together. The tooltip of Zeke's Herald, Bramble Vest, Edge of Night, Mortal Reminder, Static Shiv, Gargoyle Stoneplate, Redemption, and Protector's Vow, and Hexite Gunblade now match their radiant counterparts. AFK Augment should now always properly allow you to see the shop after its effects expire. Think Fast will no longer appear on Augment rerolls. For real this time, Pinky promise. Yeah, they said this in the last patch and then it kept happening again. But they said it's for real, so okay, we'll see. Unloaded. Loaded dice can no longer be offered as part of a Targon Prime Blessing. Unloaded 2, loaded dice can no longer be offered in Hyperroll Armories. And okay, they're pretty much just removing loaded dice. The sound of music fixed the Sona spell fizzle. Riftwalk tooltip now correctly states the augment grants a Cassidon. Fix a bug where Ionia bonuses would deactivate after summoning a unit during combat. They said this before too, I believe, but it's still a bug. So maybe they fixed it for real this time again. Talia will no longer throw rocks at knocked up units when stunned or under Zephyr. Collateral damage fix a bug where Yasuo spell would trigger enemy Talias to cast their spells on. That's funny. Lucky Glove Augment will now properly grant you sparring gloves even if you have the component buffet augment. Shoplifting now works correctly even when your bench is full. Yasuo will no longer knock up enemies and damage his target if he dies mid-cast. I did notice that happening. I was like, yes, because like I was playing a lot of Yasuo and he was clutching it out, doing fadeaways. The Man of Dreams Dreaming Pool can now grant Rise of Invoker as your top trait. World Walker Rise can now appear on carousels. Did he really? Now that I think about it, yeah, I never took a Rise off carousel. I'm taking a lot of Sennas, Scions, all those. Yeah, Rise now appears in the end of game screen. Zeri now gets full value from Robotic Arm. Fix Forge Fire Portal looking lower quality than intended on very high settings. Baron Little Legend no longer flies through the bottom of the carousel. Get Wrecked. Rek'Sai will no longer execute enemies through death prevention effects like Edge of Night and Heimerdinger's Turret's Repair-O-Matic. Ari now grants double mana per second while in her Ionia Spirit form. And then Deadeye of the Storm. Deadeye units with Runon's Hurricane now correctly deal Deadeye proc damage. I knew Runon's is good on Akshan, and you typically build Runon's on Deadeye units anyways because you build Deathblade on a lot of Deadeyes, and Deadeyes and Runon's just kind of go hand in hand. So that's actually like a pretty decent buff if... Yeah, okay. All right, but biggest change, the Augment data policy for sure. We go back to the patch highlights. I'm very excited to play Sorcerer. Sorcerer should be like... I mean, Taric got a big buff. They're not small buffs here. Swain also like pretty big buff. Not a small buff. And like, what's missing in Sorcerer? They even buffed Malzahar. Malzahar is a great item holder to bring you into the mid game. And then, wow, you get like the main weakness of the comp fixed up a bit. The main weakness was having like good frontline. And yeah, you got yourself a comp now. So I'm going to be probably spamming Sorcerers all the time. I think they did pretty well on balancing the hero augments. I think they should all be like at least like maybe a 4.75 or something like that. And some of them probably like maybe a 4.3. If I had to guess average placements, but we'll never know. You can't even prove me wrong because you don't have the data. But that's where I think they'll kind of fall. I'm really hoping for some Void 1 cost or like Challenger 1 cost or Noxus 1 cost reroll because like all these units got buffed a bit. Ashe, I don't know why they keep trying to buff Ashe. I think another comp that should be pretty good is the Azir Lux comp. I think that one didn't really get affected that much. And it should be something that's very powerful, especially since they nerfed a lot of the other like reroll comps that were kind of dominating. But overall, I'd say this is actually a pretty good patch. I said this last patch and it turned out to be like one of my least favorite patches, but I have a good feeling about this patch. I don't know why. Let me double check something in case I just missed some stuff. Like obviously, some stuff I would have changed differently, but it's all like very minor stuff, right? Because they made like a billion changes. Like of course you're gonna disagree on something, right? But I'm looking through. Let's look at the forecasts because forecasts are often like the most. Oh, legendaries being back in the like Aatrox being buffed up, very good too, and Heimer being nerfed as well, pretty good. But looking at the fork, is Gwen gonna be very powerful? Because Slayer got nerfed. You have to keep that in mind too. So there's slightly less healing on Slayers, but Gwen did get pretty sizable buff, so that should be interesting too. Uh, hmm. The Zeri comp might also be pretty good. Yeah, so probably like Sorcerers and Zeri gonna be my like picks for now without playing any games on the patch yet. So that's kind of what I'd be gearing towards. They actually say they nerfed level up here, but I don't think it actually got nerfed, so that's interesting. But yeah, let me know down in the comments what you all think about this patch. What do you think about the data change on the augments? Like, that's probably the biggest change of the patch because it's going to change how a lot of people have played in the past. And I think it's good because I use data a lot, but I use it more from like a studying standpoint before I get into the game rather than using it in game. I still used it in games, but it wasn't like all the time. It was kind of just more to like learn even more. But I remember like playing a tournament last set and you're allowed to data check during tournaments. And pretty much I was just picking everything without looking at data and I felt very confident about them. And then I looked back at the games and I was like, yeah, those were still the right choices, even with looking at data afterwards. So if you just play a lot, you kind of just know what's good already. But would I have known they were good without knowing the data beforehand? Not really sure. But that's like a very odd specific case, which doesn't apply to most people. But that's going to be it for me today. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all next time.